Porcelain flew like white birds, then burst on the sidewalk. Gold rims flashed once, then turned to grit under my slippers. Neighbors gathered, silent, while Micah stood on the porch, hands in his pockets. My name is Lorraine Rain Eleanor Brooks. I am 65, and my daughter-in-law hurled my wedding china from a second-story window and told me to die in a nursing home. I lifted our muddy wedding photo and asked, "Did you read the name on that ticket before I take you back to how it got this far? Tell me where you're listening from tonight. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, I think you'll understand this kind of quiet. You can share your city in the comments, and if this story speaks to something you've carried, you can like and subscribe so you don't miss what unfolds next. Sometimes the loudest betrayal isn't shouting, it's silence. I grew up in a church where the wooden pews creaked louder than the choir some Sundays. My parents believed in order. Sunday school at 9, service at 10:30, potluck in the basement after. I liked the basement best. It smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner and something warm baking in aluminum trays. That was where I first noticed Leonard Anthony Brooks, standing by the folding tables with a paper plate in his hand, laughing too hard at something the pastor said. He had a way of listening that made you feel chosen. When he asked me what I wanted to do with my life, he didn't interrupt. I told him I wanted to teach little kids how to read so they wouldn't feel small in the world. He nodded like that was the most important ambition he had ever heard. We were married within a year. It felt fast to some people. It felt certain to me. We moved to a coastal southern town after Leonard got a job in logistics at the port. The air there always carried salt, even when you couldn't see the water. We bought a 2-story house on a quiet street with magnolia trees leaning over the sidewalks. It needed paint. The floors groaned. The kitchen cabinets stuck when you pulled them. But it was ours. We paid the mortgage with overtime and patience. Leonard picked up extra shifts. I taught second grade for 3 decades. I graded spelling tests at the kitchen table while he balanced bills with a pencil tucked behind his ear. The house filled slowly. A couch we bought on sale, a dining table passed down from his aunt, wedding china we used once a year on our anniversary. When Micah was born, I taped his hospital bracelet inside my recipe book. Micah grew up running down that hallway, sock feet sliding on hardwood. Leonard would catch him before he crashed into the wall. They were loud together. I liked that. Noise meant life. On evenings when the sun poured through the front windows, the 3 of us would sit on the porch steps, drinking sweet tea, watching the street settle into dusk. Then one afternoon, Leonard didn't come back inside. He had gone out to take the trash to the curb. I heard a thud. Not loud, just wrong. When I opened the door, he was on the grass, one hand curled near his chest. The ambulance lights painted the house red and blue. By the time they loaded him in, I already knew. After the funeral, the house changed temperature. It was the same square footage, the same furniture, but it felt bigger, colder. At night, I could hear the clock in the hallway tick like a metronome keeping time for a life that had stopped. I wore my purple bathrobe and wandered from room to room, touching the backs of chairs like they might answer me. 3 weeks later, Micah showed up in the rain. He stood on the porch, hair plastered to his forehead, suitcase at his feet. Beside him was Tessa Lynn Hart. I had met her twice before. She smiled easily, too easily. Micah told me they had gotten married at the courthouse. He said it quick, like ripping off a bandage. They needed a place to stay, just for a little while. He had lost his job. Tessa was pregnant. I didn't ask why I hadn't been invited to their wedding. I opened the door. The first change was the bedroom. I gave them mine, the one Leonard and I had shared for decades. It faced east, caught the morning light. I told myself sunlight was good for a pregnant woman. I moved upstairs. The second change came quieter. Tessa started working from home. She needed space. My new bedroom became her office. I carried my clothes up to the attic. The ceiling sloped low enough that I had to duck near the window. In summer, it felt like a closed oven. I told myself it was temporary. Dinner shifted too. I would cook pot roast or baked chicken. Set the table, like always. Tessa would smile and say, We're having a private conversation tonight. She would slide my plate toward the kitchen counter. I ate under the hum of the refrigerator, while laughter drifted from the dining room. Micah's laugh sounded thinner there. When Jaden was born, I held him and felt something soften in me, a second chance at joy. I read to him every afternoon. When Layla arrived, I learned how to rock 2 babies at once, one on each hip. The third change cut deeper. One day Jaden called me Grandma. The word rang through the hallway like a bell. Tessa's head snapped up. "We're calling her Miss Rain," she said lightly. "It sounds younger." Jaden blinked at me, confused. He repeated it the next time. "Miss Rain." I nodded and kept reading the picture book. That night I wrote the first entry in a small spiral notebook. I didn't know why I was writing, just that I needed to see the words outside my own head. Money shifted after Leonard died. I had my pension. Micah handed me small amounts when he could. Tessa handled their banking. I covered utilities without making a show of it. I told myself this was what family did. On Jaden's 8th birthday, I bought him a gift he had talked about for months. I paid in cash, wrapped it carefully. When Tessa found out, her smile tightened. "We agreed no big gifts," she said. "You're undermining us." She made me return it the next day. The clerk looked at me with pity when I slid the receipt across the counter. I folded the refunded bills into my wallet and felt something go still inside me. The night before, everything changed. I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet again. I put on my brown coat and walked to the corner store owned by Calvin Price. The bell over the door chimed. The fluorescent lights flickered. "Late night." "Miss Rain?" he asked. "Couldn't rest," I said. I filled out a Powerball slip with the same numbers Leonard had liked. I watched the ticket print before I tucked it away. I turned it over and signed my full name. Lorraine Eleanor Brooks. Slow, clear, Leonard used to say. "Sign it the second you get it." Paper doesn't lie when people do. Cal printed the receipt. The timestamp glowed at the top. I folded it separate from the ticket and slipped it into my wallet. When I got home, I set the ticket in the center of the kitchen table. Not hidden, not locked away. Just there. Then I went up to the attic and lay down in the dark, listening to the house breathe, waiting to see who would ask a single question in the morning. I woke to shouting at about 6:40 a.m., the kind that yanks you up right before your mind catches up. Footsteps pounded below, cabinet doors slamming, Tessa's voice sharp and bright like broken glass. I stood at the top of the attic stairs in my purple robe, one hand on the banister, listening to Micah's sleepy confusion turn into a breathless laugh. "They're the winning numbers," Tessa kept saying. "Micah, look, look." No one said my name. No one asked where the ticket came from. When I stepped into the kitchen doorway, Tessa was holding the paper up to the light like it was holy. Micah stared at his phone, then at the ticket, then back at his screen. Tessa turned and saw me. Her smile snapped into place. "Can you believe it? Miss Rain, we found a ticket on the table." "Found." She said it like I was a visitor. I looked at Micah. He avoided my eyes, but I saw his throat work as he swallowed. He had seen my name and chosen quiet anyway. "Congratulations," I said, and the word tasted like metal. Upstairs, I opened my wallet. The receipt was still there, folded crisp and separate, the timestamp printed clean at the top. I ran my thumb over it like a bruise. Then I went down again. Calm enough that my own steadiness surprised me. I didn't argue in the kitchen. I walked out the front door and straight to Calvin Price's store. Cal's bell chimed when I pushed inside. He took one look at my face and set his paper down. "You heard," he said. "I heard them," I answered. "Cal, I need you to tell me something. You still got your cameras from last night." He didn't hesitate. "Keeps 30 days. I can save that slice." "And I need a statement," I said. "Just what you saw. Me buying it. Me signing." He nodded and pulled a notepad from under the counter. His pen scratched fast. I watched the ink dry and felt everything stop shaking for a beat. Outside, the morning was bright and ordinary. I stood on the sidewalk and dialed the state lottery claims number. A man answered. Calm and practiced. "Claims Department, Owen Carlisle." I gave my name. I told him I bought the ticket. I told him I signed it. I told him 2 people in my house were calling it theirs. He asked, "Do you have the ticket in your possession?" "No," I said. "It's on my kitchen table." A pause. Then his voice lowered. Ma'am, if your name is on the back, that matters. ID has to match. If anyone tries to claim it with a different name, it won't go through. My hands trembled, but my voice didn't. They're going to try. I'm noting a dispute, he said. Bring your receipt and identification to our office, and please be careful. Families get ugly when money shows up. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the store window. Leonard used to say, sign it, always. I heard his voice like a hand on my shoulder. When I returned, Tessa was waiting in the living room like she'd been rehearsing. Micah hovered behind her, shoulders rounded. Tessa spoke in that sweet voice she used when she wanted to sound reasonable. We've been talking. With this kind of money, we'll be moving. A fresh start. Good for you, I said. And you won't be coming, she continued. We've looked at places, nursing care, people your own age. The room smelled like her candle, vanilla trying to cover something sour. My wedding photo sat on the mantel. Leonard's smile caught behind glass. This is my house, I said quietly. She smiled wider. Micah's name is on the deed, too, which means you can't just throw us out. And we can make it very uncomfortable for you to stay. Micah stared at the floor. His silence wasn't neutral. It was permission. I went upstairs to pack. I moved slowly, touching my things like they were skin. I grabbed the spiral notebook with my handwriting filling page after page. Bills I paid, rules she made, dates I wrote down so I wouldn't doubt my own memory. Footsteps came hard on the stairs. Tessa burst into the attic without knocking. I'll help, she said, already yanking hangers from my closet. You're taking too long. She threw my dresses onto the bed, then to the floor. Fabric slapped wood. She grabbed Leonard's Bible and my box of keepsakes, the pen wrapped in cloth, my wedding china stacked in tissue. Don't, I said. She opened the attic window. The first thing she tossed was the framed wedding photo. It hit the walkway with a crack I felt in my teeth. Then a plate. Then another. White porcelain exploding on concrete. The sound pulled neighbors to their porches. Downstairs. Someone gasped. I saw Miss Darlene across the street, hands shaking as she held her phone up. Tessa leaned out the window and called down, loud enough for the whole block. Go die in a nursing home. Micah appeared in the attic doorway, hands in his pockets, face pale. He didn't move. I walked past him, down the stairs, out the front door. My things were scattered in the yard, muddy and broken. I picked up the wedding photo. The glass shattered, but the picture still there. I wiped mud off with my sleeve and looked up at Tessa on the porch. Did you read the name on the back, I asked? Her smile faltered. That was enough. Miss Darlene took my elbow without asking and guided me to her car. The motel room she helped me get smelled like bleach. But when the door shut behind me, the silence was mine. I laid the receipt, the notebook, and Cal's handwritten statement on the little table in a neat line. Then I sat on the bed and listened to my own breathing, steady as a promise. I walked into county courthouse today in my pressed navy dress, pearl earrings cool against my neck. Courtroom 3B smelled like old wood and lemon cleaner. Miss Darlene sat near the front with her phone in both hands. Calvin Price waited by the aisle, jaw set. Micah wasn't beside Tessa. He sat alone, staring at his knees. Judge Alana Whitfield took the bench, and the room stood. Her eyes moved over us like she could weigh lies by sight. We're here on an emergency request for guardianship and on a disputed lottery claim, she said. I want facts. Tessa rose in a white suit, hair flawless, voice soft. Your Honor, my mother-in-law has been confused. She's vulnerable. We're trying to protect her from dangerous financial choices. Her lawyer slid a medical evaluation toward the judge. Diminished capacity, guardianship recommended. A doctor's name I'd never heard. The judge read, then looked at me. Mrs. Brooks, have you ever seen this physician, number ma'am? I said. Tessa smiled. She forgets, she murmured. My lawyer, Victor Lane, stood. Your Honor, we contacted that clinic. The physician confirmed he has never treated my client. The courtroom tightened into silence. Judge Whitfield's gaze sharpened. We'll return to that document, she said. Mr. Lane, proceed. Calvin took the stand and spoke plain. She came in around 11:40 something, he said. Picked her numbers. Paid. turned the ticket over and signed her full name. Asked me for the receipt. Victor held up the receipt. The judge leaned forward to see the timestamp. My stomach clenched like the digits could change. They didn't. Then Victor played the store footage. Grainy, but clear enough. Me at the counter, my hand steady as I signed the back. Calvin handing me the ticket and the receipt. When the video ended, the room exhaled. Next came Miss Darlene. "I live across the street," she said. I recorded what happened when they threw her out. Her phone video filled the monitor. Plates shattering. My wedding frame hitting the sidewalk. Tessa's voice cutting through it all, bright and cruel. "Go die in a nursing home." Judge Whitfield didn't. Victor opened my spiral notebook on the witness table. Pages filled with dates and amounts. Mrs. Brooks kept records, he said. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, years of payments. Tessa's lawyer objected. Judge Whitfield lifted a hand. Overruled. Then Victor called Micah. My son walked to the stand like he was walking into weather. He sat, shoulders rounded, hands clasped so tight his knuckles were white. Tessa stared at him, smiling like a warning. "Mr. Brooks," Victor said, "on the morning the ticket was found. Did you see the signature on the back?" Micah swallowed. His eyes flicked to me for the first time in years. "Yes," he said. "What did it say?" He closed his eyes. Lorraine Eleanor Brooks. A gasp rolled through the room. Tessa's smile cracked at the corners. "And you said nothing?" Victor continued. Micah's voice shook. I was scared. "She told me she'd take the kids. She told me my mom would end up somewhere she can't fight back. So I stayed quiet." Judge Whitfield leaned forward. "Mr. Brooks, did your wife submit this medical evaluation?" Micah looked at the paper like it was poison. "She did," he said. "She said it would make it easier to move my mom out." The judge's stare slid to Tessa. "Mrs. Brooks, stand." Tessa rose, chin lifted. "Your Honor, this is emotional," she started. "Stop," Judge Whitfield said. "This document is forged. That is fraud." Tessa's face flushed. "I was protecting my family," she snapped, the sweetness gone. Victor didn't argue. He handed the judge Calvin's signed statement and the note from claims. Paper, ink, timestamps. The kind of truth that doesn't raise its voice. Judge Whitfield spoke slowly, each word landing hard. "The ticket belongs to Mrs. Lorraine Brooks. The guardianship request is denied. Mrs. Tessa Brooks. You will vacate the home within 72 hours. Any contact regarding finances will go through counsel." I didn't smile. I didn't need to. I looked at Micah and watched him lift his head, like a man who'd been underwater too long, deciding to breathe. The motel room was small, but the air felt different that night. Not lighter, just honest. I set my purse on the narrow table and took everything out one piece at a time. The receipt with its quiet timestamp, Calvin's handwritten statement, the spiral notebook thick with years of dates and amounts. Paper doesn't tremble. People do. Outside. A truck rumbled past and the window rattled in its frame. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the silence settle into my bones. I had spent so long trying to keep peace that I forgot peace without dignity isn't peace at all. Micah called once. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. "Mom, I'm sorry," he said. "I know." I answered. It wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement. "I'll sign whatever needs signing," he added. "I won't fight you on the house." "You won't," I said gently, "because it was never yours to fight over." When I hung up, I didn't cry. I opened the notebook instead. The first page I ever wrote in it held a date and one sentence. Dinner alone again. Underneath that, years of numbers, utilities, groceries, payments I made without applause. It wasn't about money. It was about proof that I had been there, that I had carried the weight. The ticket itself was still locked away by the claims office until the paperwork finished. I didn't need to see it. I had seen enough. People think revenge is loud. Mine was quiet. A signature placed where it belonged. A forged document exposed in open court. A boundary drawn in ink instead of tears. They thought pushing me into a smaller room would make me disappear. They didn't understand that shrinking my space only sharpened my focus. I folded the receipt once more and slid it back into my wallet. Tomorrow, I would step back into my house. Not to argue, not to prove. just to stand in it without asking permission. Sometimes the loudest victory is simply staying. 6 months later, I sit on my own porch again, watching the light stretch across the street like it never left. The house is quiet, but not empty. There's a difference. I still think about that morning sometimes, about how close I came to disappearing in my own life. If you've listened this far, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what you would have done in my place. Would you have stayed silent? Or would you have signed your name and drawn a line if stories like this matter to you? You can subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Some wounds close slowly, some relationships take longer, and sometimes, the hardest part isn't winning in court. It's deciding who you let back through your front door. Tell me what you think.